draw a 1" by 10" strip across the bottom of your piece of paper. Make sure that it's even. And you're just going to draw this lightly with a light pencil. And we're using just a regular drawing pencil to do this. I want it to be dark enough to be able to see it, but this is going to be done in charcoal, so this is really just a guideline. I'm going to be putting a sphere at the top of this page. That's going to kind of be a completed drawing, so this is just going to be at the very bottom. I'm using tape. Now, it's best to use painter's tape or drafting tape. At this particular point, I only had some masking tape, so if you have to use that, you have to be very, very careful. I highly recommend using painter's tape. In the next video, you'll see that I have some painter's tape, and that's what I'm using. So now I'm going to mark off every inch on here, and this is just to be used as a guide, so when I start to fill in my charcoal, that I can make sure that at each inch marker I get a little bit darker as I go down towards the bottom. So right now I'm just kind of filling this in. And I'm smoothing it in. I want that to be very subtle into the white. Now I'm going to look at these like inch marks, and I'm going to try to kind of draw them in at each of those incremental values. So this would be like my darkest one. I'm using Vine charcoal right now to do this. I used Vine charcoal when I just did that little bit of background, and I'm slowly getting a little bit lighter, so I'm not putting as much down. And now I'm using my tortillon and my eraser, and I'm starting to kind of blend them together. And so I'm using that tortillon to kind of smooth them in. Now right now they still have they still have lines between them. I eventually want this to not have any lines, so I'm going to smooth it together. Right now I'm just kind of looking at how I want it to stay dark and then slowly move up to light. So right now I'm using a 6B pencil. That's like my darkest value. I'm going to slowly ease that into the other. You want to use really short, neat strokes. So this is compressed charcoal. So if your charcoal pencils don't say 6B, 4B, you want to use the one that is the darkest. So if you can see, as I'm getting towards my middle tones, I'm going to the lighter charcoal pencils that I have. I'm just kind of slowly, with short, neat strokes. That's really important. Notice how I'm holding my pencil at the very bottom as I'm doing this. So now I'm into my lightest pencil, my B, and again, short, neat strokes. So you can see that kind of like moving up. So I'm going to kind of work back into those because I'm going to use my blending stump or tortillon to kind of work with that too. And kind of keep going back and forth with the pencils until I get the value that I want. I can use my chamois. It takes away a little bit more than toilet paper, so that can be a good thing in those like lightest areas to kind of pull out. I can use my toilet paper, especially in those mediums, to get it to blend, and kind of keep going back and forth until I have that perfect blend. You just kind of keep going back and forth and back and forth. And look at the pencils that you're grabbing to see what value they are. And then when you take the tape off, carefully peel the tape off, you'll have a clean value scale across the bottom of your paper. And then just clean up any extra stray marks with your kneaded eraser. And then we're going to be putting the sphere up at the top. So now I marked off where I want this image to go, and I'm creating using my whole arm very lightly with a light value pencil. I'm creating my sphere. Once I have it, I'm going to kind of come back over it and make that a little bit dark. Now I'm coming in with some Vine charcoal to just kind of lay in the basic highlights on this white paper. I'm looking at where it's darkest, and I'm kind of using my toilet paper, and I'll use the chamois a little bit and my Tortillon just to kind of get that basic value down with the Vine charcoal. And I'm leaving the white part white at this point. I just chunk that in. I'm going to use my Tortillon a little bit. And kind of just keep going back and forth and blending it until you get it the basic value that you want it to be. And this will help to make everything a lot more even as I start to add in more shading with the charcoal pencils. You can get a lot of that basic shading done and your lights and darks done with the Vine charcoal. Because right now I've not used any compressed or any of the charcoal pencils yet. I'm thinking of the light source and I'm starting to draw in the shadow. And notice that part of the shadow has some reflection, some light reflection in it. And that happens especially if you were drawing something that was on a white surface. It's going to kind of reflect back in to the shadow. Now the darkest part of this sphere is still going to be, even the lighter areas in it are going to be darker than the lightest parts where the light hits the object. Sometimes it seems like it gets pretty light there, but it's still going to be a little bit darker. Right now I'm deciding where I want to have that background fall, and so I just made a mark on this piece of paper. I'm going to draw in and so right now I'm using some Vine charcoal to come in and lay down just that value through the background and just kind of get this dark, and then I'm going to smooth that in, and then I can come back over it with compressed charcoal or the charcoal pencils, which are also compressed charcoal. I'm coming in with some compressed charcoal, and I'm using my 6B charcoal pencil. I could also just use a regular compressed charcoal stick. And then I can come in with like a tortillon to smooth that out. And I kind of keep working on like cleaning things up too. So coming back and forth with the eraser. I'm coming in and smoothing this out. So especially if you're using something bigger, you might choose to use the compressed charcoal sticks. It really comes down to choice here and what you like better. But continuously kind of clean things up. And before I even started this, I had sprayed that bottom little strip just to make sure that it stayed nice. So remember, short, neat strokes back here. That's important. You want them to be nice and even. And I'm using that tortillon to smooth it out. So it'll be like a really dark area back here, which will really make this sphere pop out. I'm just kind of sharpening up that edge a little bit. Kind of want to keep going back and forth and working on those darker values. You can always kind of take them back a little bit with your kneaded eraser, or even sometimes your chamois will pull quite a bit of it back. But keep working through what are your darkest values. You kind of want to over exaggerate them always to make them look a little bit more three-dimensional, but make sure that you are staying true to the fact that the darker areas have to remain darker and the lighter areas have to remain lighter.